IYKYK, which obviously YD. Okay?
Yeah. Dutcher and Hardy, mornings on the Sports Hub.
This should be a big streaming show on the account of the big news that happened overnight.
Yeah.
And you can see how media outlets work. Not a lot of people working after midnight because it's taking a while for a concise encapsulation of this trade to come through instead of just filibustering from shams. Giannis and Bobby Portis are sent to the Miami Heat for Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime
Escalante. Jaime Escalante.
They're both
a hell of a math teacher and a good basketball player.
The finger man is what he called the one guy. Kasparis Yakachonis. That's right.
Yes.
The 13th pick in this year's draft, which is interesting because Milwaukee holds on to the 10th pick in this year's draft. Did you know that, John? You did not. Milwaukee had the 10th and 13th picks in this year's draft, and they gave up the 13th pick in this year's draft. They hold the higher pick still, which is interesting to me, certainly, that that makes the trade even look.
They really didn't want Jaylen Brown.
It's just everything. And then you go, oh, well, they got the 13th pick in this year's draft, and then they received future picks as well. And then you go, oh, yes, but they're in 31 and 33. That's in the year 2031 and the year 2033. So, that's that. And then they have a pick swap in 2030 if you're looking for immediate action.
The 2033 draft pick doesn't even sound like a real year.
Well, they get the second round pick, too, so they'll control the 2033 year draft.
Some guy in fifth grade's going to Milwaukee.
I will be...
sixth grade, whatever it is.
It's 7 years. I mean, both my kids will... My daughter will be a senior in college. I mean, this is exciting news that Milwaukee will be picking the summer that my daughter either is graduating or is about to graduate. Hopefully, we'll see how long it takes her, or if she even goes. It's up to her. All right, so people are very excited. We have full phone lines because who knew news would break overnight, making us the first live show local to be on the air, which we are taking advantage of in wall to wall. As long as you call in, Matt, go ahead.
Jaylen Brown is a self-absorbed, pseudo-intellectual pissant who has a pouty little face, and everyone in Boston is sick of him, and we need to stop pretending like he's a fully formed human whose opinion matters. Thank you.
Right, but he does play basketball for the team, regardless of your opinion of his intellect, and they tried to get rid of him, and they couldn't.
And that is look, you can feel whatever you want about Jaylen Brown personally, obviously, but to say that everyone in Boston is sick of him, no. There are plenty of people who look at the championship that Brown and Tatum won 2 years ago, where Brown was the finals MVP, and say, why are you so eager to be rid of this guy? What is it?
Right.
And if you're offended by his his intellect or his sensibilities or his politics, whatever. Between him and Tatum, Brown is the grown-up. He's the adult in the room, and I don't know if that jives with what Tatum is all about or what Tatum and Missoula are doing. But there's obviously some conflict there between the three of them.
The question is, would Brad Stevens have traded Jaylen Brown if the Giannis deal was not available this summer?
And that's interesting.
The question.
And so that's even more interesting. So say they don't devalue Jaylen Brown. Say they think Jaylen Brown is what he is. They think he's very, very good, but not Giannis. And they go, this is an opportunity, the only opportunity we'll get to get a player of this caliber. What's interesting about that is they obviously, and I just told you the Miami trade, this is not a sensational return that's like otherworldly. I mean, the Celtics were willing to give up Brown and 2 first-round picks. Brown, in their estimation, I assume was equal to the value, essentially, of the players that Miami shipped off to Milwaukee. That's not a ridiculous statement. I mean, Brown's got bona fides. He was an MVP candidate. Tyler Hero's contract's expiring. They probably went Obviously, the Celtics felt he was more valuable than Milwaukee did. So if they do like Brown and this was a once in a lifetime shot and they didn't get it, now I don't know how you pivot from here.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it seems like all of these rumors around Jaylen Brown being traded were because he's pissed off that the Celtics tried to trade him. And it's clear Brad Stevens, we had Danny Ainge on for how many years?
Wait. Say that again?
It's clear that now the theory is the Celtics want to trade Jaylen Brown because he's angry that they tried to deal him, in theory, to Milwaukee.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, they can't keep him.
They can't keep him, but it's clear that Brad Stevens subscribes to Danny Ainge's theory. He said a lot of memorable things when he was on with us, but the most memorable was, he said, I go up to players and they ask me how I'm doing, and I tell them I'm looking for players better than you. He would tell his players this during the season. That's what Brad Stevens was doing. Brad Stevens was looking for a player better than Jaylen Brown, which, if healthy, Giannis is. I don't think that's debatable at all. So now that deal is off the table, I don't know if you can trade Jaylen Brown and get an adequate return for him.
No, not.
We said it in the first segment. Top 10 players aren't available other than this guy.
Right.
And Jaylen Brown is a top 10 player, top 15 player in this league.
The only way you could pivot is if we're going to go the Knicks route and we're going to go, we can't do it with 2 max contracts or, to get it under these aprons. So we would trade Brown for NBA assets, but we would have Tatum as a 10 post and then, deep talent around him.
Yeah.
So they could pivot to that theory, which we've had some people, what was it, O'Connor, I think, it was like that's the other option. Because in the current NBA, the Celtics believe that if you're going to have 2 max players, they got to be like top 10 guys. Or you're going to have a superstar surrounded by a great deal of depth, which is impossible with Brown and Tatum.
Say Brad Stevens calls his buddy Danny Ainge, who has the 2nd overall pick in tonight's draft. And Ainge has been accumulating a lot of assets for Utah. Maybe Ainge thinks now's the time. He knows Jaylen Brown better than anybody.
He ain't giving up the second pick for him, though. They could give up, I don't know what their other, I know they have a lot of young talent, and I also know that they have like a lot of picks, but I don't know. I don't think he's giving up the number 2 pick in the draft for a 29-year-old guy. I think that he thinks DeBonsa or Peterson could be at least close to Brown for way less money. So I don't think there's any way that in this draft you give up the number 2 pick because there's 2 kids that could be home runs at the top. 2, maybe 3.
It depends on how you look at Boozer. You and I think, are of the same mind that will be good but not great.
I think that he'll be like a borderline all-star, according to what I hear about him, just his size, but it's more like his acumen. He's been compared to Kevin Love, who would be a consistent all-star.
True.
By the way, Peterson, no one cares, but it's sounding like Peterson's going to go number 1 from a lot of people.
Wizards, according to ESPN, the Wizards are not trading the number 1 overall pick, so that means they've clearly settled on a guy they can't afford to miss on.
Okay, we can continue to take phone calls. Dave, go ahead, Dave.
Hey, yes. So Jaylen Brown is obviously the crown jewel of would have been that trade, right?
Yes.
Going to Milwaukee. Way better than anything Miami would have offered. But look at the reason why Milwaukee's trying to trade Giannis, or they have to trade him. The dude's a head case, doesn't want to play there, so they got to trade him out. Why in the world would they swap him for Jaylen Brown and find themselves in the exact same position? And think about it, right? The basketball minds in Milwaukee probably wanted Jaylen Brown, but it was Haslam reportedly who nixed the deal. So Haslam was like, no, I'm not. This guy's not staying around for a long time. I'm not giving up a valuable asset for someone who's going to be out the door in 2 years. Kind of pretty simple, but from a basketball standpoint, Brown's the crown jewel, right?
Right, and it's obvious that the Celtics, but the thing is that the Celtics thought they could do this trade, and if you're asking me who I would value their opinion more, in a room full of Brad Stevens, Pat Riley, and Jimmy Haslam, I'm siding with Stevens and Riley, and they both wanted Giannis, and Haslam, and Stevens thought that they had a deal. And if Haslam nixed it, I think Stevens thought you're out of your mind. And I think Riley thought I just pulled one over on Haslam. So Haslam's the idiot in the room. So Stevens and Riley both have great success. Haslam's a moron. So, he does a hell of a truck stop. But as an owner, he's not very good. You can ask Cleveland about that. And so none of this it's very disappointing. I think if you're a Celtics fan, you have to be disappointed in the sense that now what? Maybe you didn't want Brown to go, but maybe this shouldn't have happened at all then. Like now in retrospect, if you weren't going to get him, obviously, this puts you in a very difficult position. Personally, I was very excited. But
it would have been exciting to talk about and of course to watch, but I guess this was too big to keep quiet. The Celtics have been pretty good about keeping these moves quiet.
The leak wouldn't have been on the Celtics.
But back to what 2 callers ago, the guy was talking about how people are sick of Jaylen Brown and his act around here, and look, him streaming and going on podcasts and doing stuff that can only get you in trouble when you take 10 seconds of it. Yeah, that's dumb. Are you really that offended by the other stuff that he does off the court? Is he really that much of a nuisance when it comes to the other stuff?
No.
To me, it's all pretty mild.
No, and that's what's interesting.
Pedestrian.
No, there's no way it's anything he's done publicly that's pissing them off.
Right.
If there's anything that's pissing them off, it's internal, which is, if anything at all is pissing them off, it's got to be something that I don't know about, which is fascinating to me. No, I don't believe anything he's live streamed or anything. That's like a tipping point where we can't have him on the team anymore.
So the team feels that way, and as a fan too. Like if you're a fan of the Celtics and you love all these guys, is anything Jaylen Brown doing really, really bugging you?
Not enough to want him off the team.
Right.
No, the only reason I wanted him to deal with Giannis was what you said. It would be fun to watch, which now at my advanced age, I'm more apt to want.
How much fun do you have left?
Exactly. Well, seriously.
6, 7 years?
It's all the Jets.
Played it probably Freddie's dead.
The Jets, they control the draft. They control the draft. And then they control the draft. And then they end up hitting on the draft and then trading everyone for picks in another draft they'll control. There's a point where it's nice to have I hear Felger say this. I used to always kind of push back. Now I don't. Like there's a point where you're let's watch games. Let's enjoy watching games. And I know you want to win a title and everything, but it's not like trading for Giannis. It made it more likely you'd win a title in the short term. All the problems were if, buts, and whens for down the road. Like this would have been extremely exciting and if healthy and all these things, made them a better team.
And that's the greatest irony. If they have pushed themselves and painted themselves into a corner where now they have to trade Brown because it's so untenable, the situation here, you're going to get back a Milwaukee-like return. You're going to get a bunch of guys and a bunch of picks in return for Jaylen Brown if you're forced to trade him. And there's no way in hell you're winning next year or probably the year after. Like you've really undid yourself by trying to maximize Tatum's window by trading Brown for Giannis. You didn't pull it off, and if now you still have to trade Brown, you're screwed. Well,
especially the morning of the draft, because if the Heat would have pulled the trigger on, or Milwaukee would have pulled the trigger on this like a week, 2 weeks ago, maybe there would have been a little runway to maneuver around and make a couple moves to build depth this season. And, have Tatum again as the guy who's the max player and then fill the roster out with good young talent or even good prime talent and to go from a depth perspective. Because, again, the two schools of thought are you need 2 top 10 guys if you have 2 max guys and then other players around them. Or you need 1 max guy and then a sea of quality depth behind them. But really now the morning of the draft, I don't know what the hell you're going to do because anything that you're not going to trade 2033 picks, over and over again. Like, I don't think you can make 6 moves. Like if you had time before this draft, you get a pick for this draft, you swap it, da-da-da-da-da. Like it seems like a lot to do in 12 hours to pop off, so you're acquiring 4 depth pieces, 4 starter type guys in a day, less than a day, it's going to be very difficult to move Jaylen Brown and make yourself better next season, even in theory. Even if your theory is that you want to have more depth and you need to be bigger and you got to get away from all this 3-point, anything you want. It's too much. It's too much in 12 hours. That much is true. It's very interesting where they go from here.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think Brown goes anywhere, and it's back to option B. If you weren't last week, if you didn't get Giannis, you keep the 2 guys and you pick around at the edges and hopefully get a better center than the one you had ended the season with.
But Stevens doesn't think they're going to win if they do that. And by the way, Miami's better now, too, in the front court. So you're bopping threes all over. Say you play Miami in the first round. Say you have another great regular season, and everyone's like, told you, like they did last year. Told you. And then you play Miami, and you're bopping around threes, and you start shooting 15, 20% from 3, and they're dominating you inside, and now you lose that series. So now there's another team that can beat you in the playoffs.
No, I won't say that, because if they do make it that far, I'll say they're playing with house money. And it's
the minute it ends, the second the game ends, the whole narrative shifts.
I'm on record now.
That's really good.
By the way, if the GM of the and I've been thinking about this, if the GM of the team comes out after the season and is way more critical of the team than the broadcaster of the team, there's an issue. Like Stevens went up and said, he did. I knew all along that we weren't that good. We didn't play well against good teams. This isn't overly surprising. We need to get better. And we need to get better now. And it didn't sound like we're going to, trade the 2033 first round pick for Vucevic or some guy like that. It sounded like we wanted to make a massive move to change how this team operates.
The trade on the table. I don't know if that happens tonight or over the summer. It was rumored that you would send Derek White to Minnesota for a guy like Rudy Gobert, who is a very good interior player, much older, but a very good interior player, shot blocker, enforcer type guy. Right. Now, if the Celtics did that, that would be a very good move for them.
Right. But you're getting an older.
No,
guy.
You're kind of painting yourself into a corner.
Not a very good offensive player.
No, he's not. But at the same time, you were stuck with a guy like that isn't as good as Rudy Gobert.
No, you're better with Rudy Gobert than you are without Rudy Gobert, depending on what you have to give up.
Yeah, right. But you're swapping out one kind of defense for another if you're sending Derek White there.
Yeah, but your problem is interior, not perimeter.
Right, but you are kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul because you're getting rid of an all-star caliber player.
But you are where you are, and that kind of move would improve your team to the point where you wouldn't get dominated inside.
I agree, but it certainly doesn't. I don't think change the calculus on their finals chances. No, at least if I'm Stevens, I mean, you got to do something to get bigger. But Gobert can't shoot threes.
No, he is the antithesis of Missoula ball, but at the same time, he gives you that interior presence you were sorely missing. He's a guy who could guard Joel Embiid for 7 games.
Right, but they can't spread the floor with them. I don't know if they're going to want to do that because that's not the way that they play.
Of course, but again, you had a guy like that. Do you finish the season with?
Right.
Gobert's about 5 times better than him.
Right.
It'd be the same thing.
Right.
Do you think they've called Jaylen? Is it too early just to see how he's feeling? Take his temperature?
No, Beaton can do that.
No. I mean, like, there's Brad. Joe called Jaylen this morning. It's like, are you okay?
I don't know how that operates. I don't know how you work that.
I think if you called Brad Stevens, he would tell you he's been in contact with Jaylen the whole time. That would be his answer.
I don't know what you really say. He's been in China too. Like I don't know how much they've been talking. All right, we'll be back. Brian Robb will be joining us in just a moment. Big show on the way.
Need a little help getting started in the morning?
It's very dangerous.
They've got the experts.
So, no.
Toucher and Hardy.
No.
On the Sports Hub.
if you're Boston, there is going to be fallout from this, some hard conversations, because for the second time in 4 years, the Celtics have offered Jaylen Brown. There are going to be some conversations now moving forward. Jaylen Brown is extension eligible in July. We'll see where things go from here.
Brian Robb, the Celtics beat reporter for MassLive.com, and a contributor here at 98.5 The Sports Hub, is joining us. Brian, hello. First of all, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
I saw you on Felger and Maz. I thought you did a great job, but wanted to have you on this morning. Okay, how serious was the Brown for Durant trade offer back a few years ago?
That nobody remembers.
Yeah, like it's hard for the layman to remember. How serious an offer was that?
That was serious. That was the thing, and it wasn't as front and center as this was for the last few weeks, but those offers came out, and there was certainly some damage control that had to be done after the fact with that.
Okay,
with Jaylen.
So the Celtics had to believe that this deal was going to get done. I'm leading you, but did the Celtics believe they had this deal done?
I think they knew that they had a very good chance. I think they believed with what Jaylen's offer was. He was by far the best player that the Bucks could get in this deal. So when you offer him up and some sweetener and first-round picks, you'd think, hey, this is something that they should jump back and compare it to the poo-poo platter that the Heat offered up. But that's not how NBA deals go sometimes, as we've seen for years and years across the league, whether it's guys the Celtics have gone past, not recently, but like, the Paul Georges of the world, like a decade ago. Like sometimes teams take offers you don't expect them to. So it's something where when the Celtics got into this and we know that Jaylen was going to get on the table, I think the Celtics knew ultimately they had enough to top the Heat's offer, but were they going to be willing to put all that on the table to get Giannis in this situation? That's what we weren't sure of. And it's clear the Celtics drew a line in the sand here. They didn't want to include some young guys like Hugo Gonzalez or Baylor Shireman or all their future draft capital and pick swaps like the Heat were. So the Bucks clearly used them well for leverage here, if nothing else, to make sure they squeezed everything out of the Heat. And now the Celtics, how they come back to this will be fascinating.
And this was the one thing that I was worried about, like giving up too much in terms of your secondary guys, which is, an issue to begin with. But the way Shireman kind of elevated and Gonzalez elevated this past season, I can see them not wanting to part with them. However, should it have been a deal breaker? Now that the Celtics have themselves in this position where they've floated Brown out there again, they're willing to give up a couple of first rounders. Should they have included that, in your opinion, in order to get this deal done?
I think I get them not wanting to go that far, but it almost makes you wonder, Hardy, like, if you're not willing to go that far, should you go down this road this much in the first place?
Right.
If that makes sense. But maybe listen, we're going to hear from Brad Stevens tonight. Jaylen Brown, I'm sure we're going to hear from sometime in this. They must think they're in an okay spot to a degree here with Jaylen Brown in these talks. Obviously, they came back from it before, and so whether those lines of communication were open the whole time or being like, listen, we're going to go down this road to a degree, but we're not desperate enough to give everything up for Giannis like the Heat are, and so they must feel at least some confidence that they can come back from that. Because I agree, like if Hugo Gonzalez or Baylor Shireman was the line in the sand, then it's no surprise in my mind that the Bucks were like, we want that too, because ultimately Jaylen Brown, for as good as he is, he's making a lot of money. He's 29, 30 years, going to be 30 soon here, and the Bucks are nowhere near a championship. And he's the guy who could have gotten disgruntled and have to be traded off again in a year or two. So the Bucks were probably like, we need stuff to hedge against that, and we need young talent on cheap contracts. We need draft picks. We don't think your draft picks are going to be very good Celtics down the line because you're going to have Tatum and Giannis forever here. So we want more. And the Celtics were like, listen, we think we're giving up a lot already. We feel okay moving forward with Jaylen here or whatever we can get for Jaylen in a plan B type deal. And so that obviously they made their line in the sand, and the Bucks walked away from it.
Well, you got it. If you're the Celtics, you got to be like, what the hell are you like? Okay, so you want me to match the Miami deal, but with Brown, right? So like you're saying that like you want young players, multiple draft picks, and Brown. And I'm looking at what Miami's offering you, and it's Tyler Hero young players and multiple way distant first-round picks. Not even your first-round pick this year.
Right.
I'm giving you they're giving you the 13th pick. I don't know if they know what Miami's offering necessarily, but they have to know what's available. So if Milwaukee's going, yeah, we want Hugo Gonzalez, we want Baylor Scheinman, we want Jaylen Brown, and we want 3 first-round picks. The Celtics have to go, what the hell is Miami offering you? What could they possibly be offering you? What is Jaylen Brown is of no consequence in this deal then. So why are we giving up Jaylen Brown except to match contracts? So, I'm talking myself into something. So in Milwaukee's mind, was Jaylen Brown just a matching contract to get these other assets? Did they even factor Jaylen Brown in at all as like a positive in the deal? I guess you could make that debate.
Yeah, they certainly did, but certainly not to the level. They didn't value him like the Celtics value him in terms of what his trade value is. It's like, if you look at the Heat trade package, Fred, like, would you trade, if you're the Celtics, would you trade Jaylen Brown for the players that the Heat gave up in this deal?
No,
exactly. So that's where you never know what's going to happen in the NBA with these blockbuster deals. There's different priorities out there.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it. Like right now in the aftermath, say this trade didn't happen and you were trying to trade for Giannis and he went somewhere else. It's like, now we got to get rid of Jaylen Brown. Well, here's this offer from Miami with Tyler Hero, a bunch of other dudes and some picks. Would you do it? No. I'm not doing that.
Right.
So that's interesting.
So, B-Rob, now that we're at this place, do the Celtics still try and trade Jaylen Brown? And if they don't, what do they do from here moving forward?
I think I'd expect all options to be on the table, Walk. And so they've been down this road before with Jaylen with trade talks. And so it's not his first rodeo, but we're not going to know how much communication there's been, how Jaylen's feeling about this. We'll obviously hear from Brad Stevens tonight about it. But it's going to be a very interesting 24 hours here, because if something is going to happen with Jaylen Brown, a lot of times if you look at past off seasons, this is when big deals go down on draft night. And so if there is a subsequent deal, like a couple years ago, we saw the Celtics tried to trade Malcolm Brogdon as part of a Porzingis trade. That fell apart, and then they quickly pivoted to moving Marcus Smart and replacing that deal in 6-8 hours later. So whether there's something lined up like that, I'm not sure. That may have made it easier for Brad Stevens to know, like, okay, we're going to make this offer to the Bucks for Giannis, and then we're not going to overpay because we have other alternatives in place, or we just know, listen, this was our chance to upgrade with like Jaylen Brown with a top 5, top 10 perennial MVP guy. They didn't take what we thought was a fair offer, and we have other alternatives to adjust the roster around Jaylen and Jason moving forward. I'm sure they have to hope that's how Jaylen's doing about it, because that's certainly going to help their leverage for whatever else they're going to do this offseason. But there's certainly other teams out there that are interested in Jaylen Brown, and how that relationship is going to have a big factor whether or not, how often those teams are calling the next week or so.
Yeah, and B-Rob, I kind of reject that notion that they've been down this road before. Yeah, they tried to trade him once. When you tried to trade him a second time, after he's won a championship, and after he's been the finals MVP, and after he led this team to a great regular season, they haven't been down this road before. Just because you tried to trade him once, 4 years ago, and then all this other stuff has happened in the aftermath. If his feelings were somewhat hurt before, I wouldn't blame Jaylen Brown for being absolutely enraged at this point. So I don't know how they move forward if they don't get a deal done. I honestly don't know how you fix this with the player.
Agree. This is a far different scenario. Like, this is from what it was 4 years ago.
Thank you. It's
yes. Front and center. No, it's like the whole road. It's been out there for weeks now. I talked about it, with Felger and Maz last week. Like, even though the Celtics didn't offer Jaylen Brown to yesterday, like, everyone knew this was going to come down to this if the Celtics were seriously in on this, and they were. And they got there, and they drew their line in the sand, and now Jaylen Brown has to swallow hard and say, and look at the situation like, all right, this is twice in 4 years. I did all this for you guys for last year. I'm also up for an extension that you can give me in late July. And so if the Celtics also say like, we're kind of good on that extension, but we want you to come back, that's just another layer to this right now. But they would giving him that extension kind of smooth things out potentially. But is that the best way the Celtics want to build moving forward? Like, those are fascinating questions we don't know the answer to right now. But it's the trade talk with Jaylen Brown. I would be stunned if that goes away. Like, they've been exploring all sorts of stuff this offseason. This was obviously the biggest domino to fall with Giannis. And now we look at, all right, this is Brad Stevens, maybe one of his toughest moments as president of this team, of being like, all right, how do you handle this situation? He cares a lot about these relationships. He's had a very long relationship with Jaylen as both a coach and a player. And so and executive, obviously. So it's how he manages this, like, all eyes are going to be watching.
All right. Brian Robb, the real benefit was to all of us because it happened overnight.
You're right.
Yes.
And so we are the kings of this story, Brian Robb. So that's
doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often. All right,
You
Brian.
guys deserve that win.
Thank you so much for that. Brian, MassLive and 98.5 The Sports Up. Thanks, Brian.
All right, thanks, everyone, guys.
Appreciate it. There you go, Brian Robb. We can take your phone calls, 617-779-0985. Jaylen Brown, as for right now, is still a Boston Celtic. And Giannis is in Miami for a bunch of stuff. Some young players that they believe could be part of a core when these picks are scheduled to happen in 5-7 years. Literally 5 or 7 years. And the Celtics were willing to give up 2 first-round picks and Brown, and Milwaukee said no.
And good for Giannis, because, in the end, this is what all these players want. They all want to play in Miami. Go down there and play with Bam Adebayo and just enjoy the nightlife, enjoy the club scene. Enjoy South Beach.
Which is what it was 20 years ago.
Yes, all of it. Go to the birdcage.
Yeah, just go to South Beach now. It's lovely.
Yeah. It's so posh.
Really, and it's models everywhere. It's just like it was 20 years ago.
High class.
Yeah, when it's not flooded and filled with homeless, it's just fantastic. And that it's not the Versace mansion anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I'm fascinated with this desire to play in Miami. I understood it back in the day. I do not get it now. I encourage everyone to go to Miami Beach and take it in and go, I want to live here. No, I'd rather live in Orlando. But then again, I'm lame. I'd rather live in Orlando. If you said you have to live in Florida, I'd rather live in Orlando. Shaq liked it.
That'd be Rochi's call, too.
Well, Shaq didn't want to leave.
And you love Universal as much as you love Disney.
I was just going to say.
I went there that one time when I was there for 4 years. I went to Paradise Island one time. Girls took us. One of the few times a girl's ever taken me somewhere. They said, I'm going to take you to Paradise Island. I don't remember what happened.
Then you took her to Paradise City.
Where the girls were pretty, so she didn't belong. All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
When it comes to the show, Hardy thinks the same way you do.
Nothing happened.
He's got the same questions.
Where is the story?
And the same opinions.
Boring.
And he's back with Fred on the Sports Hub.
If you're just getting up, the Milwaukee Bucks have accepted a trade offer for Giannis, and it is Giannis and Bobby Portis to Miami for Tyler Hero, 3 young players, the second of their 2 first-round picks this year, which I think is important to state. Now, there's not a huge gap between them. It's 10 or 13, but they got the 13th. And they get first-round picks in 31 and 33. That's of the years 2000. A pick swap in 2030. And a second-round pick in 2033. The reason I read this to you is it's not like this overwhelming deal. The Celtics had offered up Jaylen Brown and 2 first-round picks And there's reporting that they were stuck on Shireman and Hugo Gonzalez, and I don't know the validity of that.
That had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
That had nothing. I mean, they would have liked Gonzalez in a perfect world, but that wasn't the sticking point.
I mean, at some point, I have to imagine Miami that Milwaukee's just asking for stuff, and you're going, you don't want Brown, like you are asking. Excuse me.
Bless you. Bless you.
I did snuff. Like a middle-aged king. So Middle Ages. So you have to imagine that the Celtics at a certain point were like, well, you just don't want Brown. You want us to match the deal that you're getting. Almost like it almost seems like if they were asking for that, Brown is an albatross in the deal. Like they didn't want his money. So they're saying, we want Hero. He makes less and he has an expiring deal. Almost like we want Hero as much as Brown. Brown's just conversation in this. We're just looking to recoup picks. And sure, that's nice, and we can probably get more picks for him, but you're asking us to do more work. Again, none of this seems like they wanted Brown at all, which the Celtics had to think they did, or they wouldn't have been this aggressive. So it's quite interesting. So if I'm Brown, you got to put yourself in his shoes. You just had the best year of your career. The team did very well in the regular season. They get the player they feel is the best back, and then when he's back, you lose in the playoffs. And then they go, we're going to trade you. And you go, okay, fine. Giannis is really good. Whatever. And then you find out, oh, well, they don't want me either. That's not good for the ego. At least that's how I would look at it. But then again, I'm so modest.
The way you can't put your ego up against anyone else's. You're operating on a different level.
Yeah. No,
that's what I was.
Yeah, Hardy has a point. Yeah.
More.
If I'm Brad Stevens, I'm upset this morning because the way it reads to me is, regardless of why they didn't want him, I think that Brad Stevens thought that he had not a deal, but he was close to it. It sounds like Milwaukee said, make your best offer. Okay, we like that. And then they put it in front of the owner, and the owner said, no. That's what it sounds like, because they were obviously, the two sides were far down the tracks. They had talked for a while, and the Celtics, it seems like, because the reporting is Haslam stepped in and said, no, we don't want this player because he might be a problem a year from now. So I think Stevens thought he was close to the finish line with this, and then the owner stepped in and said, no, we don't want to do this. We're going with Miami.
Right. And Jimmy Haslam is the owner of Milwaukee, so if he didn't want Brown, they're not going to get Brown. But again, for everyone poo-pooing it from a Miami perspective, if I give you Brad Stevens and Pat Riley and I say compare their basketball brain to Jimmy Haslam, I'm taking the two of them.
Yeah.
They both wanted Giannis for what the packages that they offered.
Mm-hmm.
And Haslam chose Miami.
When you're Milwaukee and you're looking at the first rounders that the Celtics were going to send along with Jaylen Brown, I don't know when they were. We don't know what years they were. But let's say, just for the sake of argument, they were next year and the year after. How valuable are those first round picks?
Not very.
No,
not very at all. Which is probably, if I'm, and again, we're kind of way out here, but if I'm Milwaukee, I said, I don't want them next year or the year after. I want it when Giannis is 34 or 35.
I get why they wanted this package. I also understand why it befuddles Brown and the Celtics that they didn't. Because Brown, again, has no perceived value in this. You would think that we're offering you a guy that was an MVP candidate.
You're getting a player. You're getting assets, not as good as the first rounders you're getting from Miami, but especially the 13th that you're getting tonight. But you're getting stuff.
Well, if you got Brown and you wanted to pick in tonight's draft, I mean, I can go through the draft positioning of teams. I'm sure there's a team in the top 15 that would have wanted him. Do you think Atlanta would have traded the 8th pick for Brown? I mean, I'm just throw it out there.
Sure.
Like, I mean, would Golden State be able to move the 11th for Brown? I mean, there's Oklahoma City's has got the 12th pick. I don't know. I don't know their salary. It's just not ludicrous that they could get a top 15 pick. Brown's value is something. Even if you didn't want Brown,
the rumor was
you could flip him.
Yeah, the Clippers. I think the Clippers have the 5th pick. So I mean, there's rumor the Clippers were interested. I don't know if that was legit or not as a third team involved here.
Well, the 5th pick, you get the best guard in the draft. You get the best guard that's not Peterson in the draft. And there's 3 to choose from. So that's a pretty good place to be. Mm-hmm. You get the kid from Illinois. You get Acuff, who was the SEC Player of the Year.
Yep.
He had a historical season.
Yep.
I mean, you get a good player at 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very. It would just is a big ego bruise. I mean, they can't. And if it's like, well, Brown wouldn't want to be here. Well, if I'm the Celtics, that's a problem. Because now if I can only trade him to a handful of teams because everyone else is like, this guy doesn't want to be here as a head case, well, that's not good. He wants to be, if he does want to be the guy for my team or on a team, yet he wants to dictate where he goes based on some factors other than if he's the guy, that concerns me if I'm the Celtics. It could be just as simple as that Milwaukee didn't want him.
I have a question that doesn't matter now, but we can talk about it a little bit on the other side if you want to. Had Giannis come here, would it have been his team? No. Does Tatum need it to be his team, or would it have been? And they were talking about this yesterday, and I thought I envisioned it as kind of like a Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett scenario, where it's Paul Pierce's team. That's what Kevin Garnett said. Who's the best player out there?
It was Garnett.
It's Garnett, but he always said it was
different kind of player,
team.
though.
Different types of players,
different kind of player. Garnett
I wonder if they would have worked out that type of dynamic between Giannis and Tatum had he been here. Like, whose team is it? Oh, it's Tatum's team. Don't you worry, he was here first, and he's the guy. Wink, wink.
Yeah,
but we know what's going on.
Plus, we have some Brown audio, I would imagine, of him live streaming the Dayway yesterday.
Yeah, let's do that.
We can do that as well. Okay. All right, and we'll take some calls. 617-779-0985. We'll be right back.